Well, hey, it's me again. I'm about to start a recipe for broccoli Gouda soup. And what I have here is this smoked Gouda mix, and it's from the Taste Buds collection. I believe it's available through the pantry lineup. So I thought I'd get started, and I'm just going to prep some of this stuff. The one ingredient I'm going to be adding are some mushrooms. The recipe calls for an onion and a head of broccoli and a carrot and chicken broth. So I've got all of those things ready here. And it also calls for flour, which I have got ready to go. I'm going to tell you about this now. This is pre-browned flour, and I learned this from Dan when he was here yesterday. And what we had done was actually baked it in a pan in the oven for quite some time. It took almost 45 minutes, and it was a good thick layer of flour. And what he said was to get it until it's browned and to looking just about like sand, and in fact quite a sandy texture. So we did that, and he said just to keep this on hand anytime you're making a roux or a sauce or a gravy. This actually works really well, and it's already partially cooked, right? So it's got flavor sealed into it, and it's going to just bring a little more essence to your sauces, and I thought I would try it for this soup. So here we go. I'm just getting started with the carrot. I've already hacked the ends off with my Santoku knife, which I love. And I'm going to use my newest peeler to just quickly take the skin off. It's super easy, nice and smooth. And then what it says to do with the carrot is to grate it very finely. So I think I'm going to try this other peeler, which is a julienne peeler. So you can see the blade on this. How do I hold it? See the blade? It's actually got squares in it. So I'm going to just see what happens when I take this. Oh, well, that's really cool. Let's see if I can remember how Dan chopped that onion yesterday. He cut it in half, and I think what he said was, if you want little pieces, you cut against the grain, so you would chop it endwise, and he scores the onion lengthwise, but I actually want to cut it lengthwise so that I have kind of got longer pieces, so I'm gonna try it. Whoop. And then this last bit, I'm turning it on its side. And here we go, another one. I could have gotten my choppers out, but I decided I want to work on my knife skills. So that's why I'm using my knife today. These are going to get sauteed in the butter. So that I'm going to be starting shortly, but first I've got to cut some mushrooms up. Right then, I'm back with my mushrooms. I've pre-peeled them, and I've got my handy little cup slicer here. I'm going to just take each mushroom and smush it down in there. Smush it down. They collect in the cup, which is really cool. This was one of the best selling items in 2023, so I'm very happy to be an owner of a cup slicer. You should try it. Here we go. My cup is full. My cup runneth over, but here I can just dump it out here and show you how big the pieces are. They come out nice and chunky, and they're gonna go in the soup and wither down, so I'm okay with how big they've turned out here. There you go. That's all there is to it. It's quite a sharp blade, so you just push this thing down onto it, and that helps you empty it without touching the blade. Now it's time for the broccoli, and I'm just going to trim it up using the utility knife. So I'm just gonna snip this apart so that I end up having some nice little florets to drop into the soup, and then we can go from there with the next steps of preparation. Okay, so here I am over at the stove, and I've got my Dutch oven. It's preheating a little bit, and I'm going to be using unsalted butter in this recipe. Another thing I learned from Chef Dan, if you start with salted butter, you can never take that salt away again. So it's best to start with unsalted and then just add salt as needed to get to the flavor you want. So here goes the unsalted, and it's gonna melt nicely down in there. And next come the onions for browning. Looks like our butter's ready for the onions. And here we go. Nice little sizzle. Now look, it's the sauce whisk. I'm just gonna use this to move things around in the pot here today. I love this because it hits the bottom of the pan flat. Look at that. So you're not even gonna miss anything in the corners or the bottom of the pan. And when these start to brown and get a little bit sticky, this will pick them up and move them around gently, and it will not scratch your pan because it's coated with silicone. So the recipe says to cook the onions for 5 to 7 minutes. Here's how it looks, coming along already. And this is my added step. I'm going to be putting the mushrooms in now, and just a little bit behind the onions, and the flavor will be very rich coming from the mushrooms and the onions together. Coming along really nicely now, lots of butter in there. So next, when the flour goes in, which is right here, and the smoked Gouda seasoning, it's 6 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of the smoked Gouda. And this has a resealable top, so you are able to keep it in your cupboard for next time. Next comes the Gouda, smoked Gouda. 2 tablespoons of this flavoring. Sprinkle that around in there. I think that leaves me a good amount in the pack. Maybe another soup recipe. Now I'm going to be adding 3 cups of chicken broth, and I'm using my new measuring cup here, which has the measurements on the inside of the cup. So I can just stand here and pour until I get to the 3-cup line, and I'll be able to see exactly where I'm at. No bending over, no guesswork. There we go. Oh, there's a bit left, and I'm at 3 cups. So let's see how well this pours. Pours fairly nicely. Bring to a simmer and then reduce your heat to medium-low. So that's where I'm at now, and it's a light rolling boil. It's looking really tasty. I'm going to give you a little bird's eye view of this right now. Here's what we're dealing with. Okay, now it's time to add the carrots and broccoli, and then the cream is going to go in. This is looking very hearty all of a sudden. Now the cream. Whoa, beautiful. So with the heat on medium-low, I'm going to be bringing this to a simmer and then letting it sit like that for about 15 minutes. And meanwhile, I'm over here with the bread. I've been busy chopping the bread up, but it was a snap with my new bread knife. And the cubes are fairly big. I am kind of following what I'm seeing here in this photo. So I am about to put the bread cubes into this bowl with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, another tablespoon of the smoked Gouda mix, and some salt and pepper. And then you toss that up, throw it in the oven, and by the time the soup is ready, so will the croutons be. And then you can just drop them in the soup, and I think also the recipe calls for a little bit of grated cheese on top. So I'm going to look and see what I've got in the fridge. All right, here go the breadcrumbs into the bowl. I've tossed the bread cubes in the oil and salt and pepper with the smoked Gouda mix. And now I'll just spread them out on this pan and get them in the oven. It says about 12 minutes until they are brown and crispy. And ooh, I'm gonna just love floating these in my soup. Yes, they are carbs. I don't care today. Breadcrumbs are ready. And so is the soup. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I invited my neighbor over. I hope she comes. Well, as it turned out, I found some Gouda cheese in the fridge. This was by far the best soup I have ever made for myself. Absolutely delicious. Woo!